jet coasters, panda boats, and whatever the hell this is. I'm Rollercoaster David, and this is coasting into Higashiyama Zoo and Botanical Gardens. So today I'm at Higashiyama Zoo and Botanical Gardens, and I'm probably going to mispronounce Higashiyama several times in this video. Higashiyama Zoo is located in the city of Nagoya and is easily accessible by the metro system, so if you're using the city as a base to visit Nagashima Spa-land, then this park makes for an easy add-on. I arrived early in the morning as I had a bullet train to catch in the afternoon, and when I got there, the park was mostly deserted. They've got two and a kind of roller coaster here. There's one decent sized one, which I think is just called Rollercoaster, and there's a powered kiddie cred. The roller coaster itself, I was the only person on it. Like I say, the park's pretty deserted, but it's got a little bit of airtime in the front seat, just on the up bits. It's probably one of the more compact jet coasters I've been on, but it makes decent use of the space available, and as I said, there's a small amount of airtime in the front seat, and it's always fun to ride coasters with unique layouts. The other coaster they had is a powered kiddie one, and the final thing they have is this weird side friction thing, which is shut at the moment, but hopefully will be open later. So yeah, this thing here, is it a coaster? I'm not sure. It's got a lift hill, but it's strange, a side friction track. This was actually probably my main reason for coming to this park. Just, it's fun to ride the unusual and odd. And this is certainly unusual and odd. Like I say, I'm not sure if it's a roller coaster or not, but we shall see how it rides. It's certainly got a chain lift, so that's the one in the plus roller coaster stakes. It kind of reminds me of that hill in San Francisco, with all the tight corners, except you're on a weird side friction buggy in this one. Defining what is and isn't a roller coaster is always a bit of a controversial topic, and to me this seems more like riding a go-kart downhill than riding a roller coaster, but you can't really deny that it operates in the same side friction principle as some of the first ever roller coasters, such as Leap the Dips or some of the scenic railways. Whilst it doesn't really run on a defined track, in some ways it's the same kind of ride as the bobsleigh coaster, and few would argue that they aren't coasters. I've ridden many wooden, steel and hybrid coasters in my time, but I'm fairly certain this is the only concrete coaster I've ridden. So I've just ridden this slope shooter, possibly coaster thing. It's a bit unusual. I've not seen anything or ridden anything quite like it before. You go in these little buggies and it sort of runs down the hill, but the buggies have like wheels on the sides of them, so it turns you around corners. It's a bit strange. Very Japanese. But yeah. Some of the bits feel like you're going quite fast into the corners because there's no actual brakes on the coaster. There's one sort of mid-course bit, but it doesn't do anything. But the rest is just absorbed by the energy of you bouncing off the walls. It's an odd one. But yeah, you can see how it kind of works, at least anyway. It's got wheels on the side that take you around the corner. Honestly, there's nothing I've ever been on that's quite like it. It's not the fastest of rides in the world. It does end up going pretty slow. I'm probably going to make it down to the bottom before the actual cart does. But for something unique and a reason to come here, I think it's worth it. I couldn't help but smile when riding it, as it just seemed so weird and unique. But it wasn't without its problems though. This is another place where the rides aren't really designed for tall people either. The roller coaster I had to ride kind of side saddle with my legs to one side, and the slope shooter thing had to sit cross-legged in it. But I did manage to squeeze into both, so that's something. The park also has a few weird flat rides, and of course a couple of the real staples of Japanese parks. As is mandatory for Japanese parks, there is of course a giant Ferris wheel and a pirate ship. Although one thing I've noticed is that most of the pirate ships seem to be Viking themed. Oh well. There's also a giraffe. The Ferris wheel was particularly cute, as each carriage was designed as an animal found at the zoo, such as koalas, penguins and giraffes. Separate from the amusement park is a large boating lake, which is probably the most impressive and most random collection of pedal boats I've ever seen. There were helicopters, jets, swans, flamingos, diggers, fire engines, police cars, pandas, ladybirds, and so many others. It was quite crazy. So one thing that surprised me about this park as well was how cheap it was. It was only 500 yen to come in, and so that's only, what, about £3.50? The rides weren't very expensive either, and the park is really quite large and includes a well-presented botanical garden. Unfortunately, the zoo part of the park was at best a mixed bag. Sadly, although some of the parts of the zoo are reasonably modern, there's a lot of the zoo that's quite outdated, and there's a lot of the zoo where the animal enclosures just are not up to scratch. So while some of the enclosures are actually of decent size, this elephant one, for example, seems decent, a lot of them are woefully inadequate. There were some ones with snow leopards and jaguars that were just so tiny that it's just shocking how they can keep the animals there. It's a shame, really. I think the zoo's got potential. Like I said, some of the more modern looking areas, they do seem like they've put some work into it and they're up to modern standards. But some of the bits further back, they're not. And like I say, it's actually quite hard to watch some of the animals there. It's a shame, as one of the other zoos I went to was Tobu Zoo, to the north of Tokyo, and it had some pretty good roller coasters there. Regina, a big wooden one, and Kawasimi, I think it's Kawasimi, which is an Intamin Megalite, which is great fun. But again, it was the case that the animals just were in really sort of barren cages, little to no sort of enrichment, and just really, really tiny cages, so much concrete in them. So I think zoos have a way to come in Japan. Hopefully they'll make that journey. So this is probably the worst bit of the zoo in terms of enclosures. There were just some 2 honey badgers in one of those cages there. But there's all these ones with cats, some of them not big cats, but some are. And these just seem woefully small for the animals that are in them. I had a look in the area behind and there's no more room for them. Yeah, we've got a snow leopard in the cage behind me. I think there was another leopard in here earlier. Yeah, that's really not enough room for these animals. There do seem to be some signs of hope at least, though. They seem to be constructing some more modern enclosures for the animals, so that's something. A lot of the animals need much bigger, better enclosures. Yeah, again I feel the lion enclosure is particularly small. There's this bit around the back here and a bit around the front. The other thing is, compared to a lot of other zoos, there's nowhere really for the animals to hide from being on show. Most zoos have like some rocks they can lurk behind or things like that. Here they're just there, and there's nowhere for them to hide or escape the public eye. But like I say, hopefully whatever they're building behind me here is going to be a better enclosure. I've been to quite a few different zoos around the world, and in generally some of them can be absolutely fantastic. Things like Chester Zoo, Berlin Zoo, Cologne Zoo, Taronga Zoo in Australia. They're great and they do really valuable conservation work as well. This one, like I said, it just feels like it's got a long way to go to reach the standards of those, but it is making some steps, which is good. The lack of enrichment also seems to be quite an issue, as some of the animals were sort of showing some distress type behaviours. Like I say, there does seem to be improvements being made at the zoo, and the information leaflet for the amusement park part said it was funds from it were going towards improving the animals' experience. So hopefully it'll happen. There was a lot of construction going on in the park though, so I do hope that the change in the park will happen quite rapidly, and soon the zoo will be as much fun as the slope shooter ride is. So yes, Higashiyama Zoo. It's interesting to visit. Like I said, the zoo part is not good in some bits. In a lot of areas it seems to be improving though, so that's something. The amusement park, it's got one interesting, unique coaster, and whatever the hell that slope shoot thing is. So if you've got some spare time and you're in Nagoya, consider visiting the zoo. Hopefully by the time other people visit, some of the animal enclosures will have improved a bit. Still, things seem to be improving. Lots of stuff seems to be being built. And yeah, hopefully it'll improve by the next time I'm in Japan. After leaving the park, I jumped on the bullet train back to Tokyo and was able to check into my hotel with just enough time to visit one final park, Tokyo Joypolis, which I'll try and feature in another video. For now, I've been Rollercoaster David, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again in another video very soon.